Peace to Eric, Mad Scientist, True Knowledge. You can catch me on Facebook, TikTok, and Bang. And you catch me on Elevate Y'all Minds YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Elevate Y'all Minds YouTube. Go to my presentation. What happens to people who experience NDE, near-death experience? I am basing this presentation off my research from people who clinically died called NDE, near-death experience. I will be speaking on things they seen and experienced, like the light, darkness, seeing relatives and friends that pass, having no fear and having peace. Also, the scientific reason for these events, and the leading NDE, Bruce Greyson with Emily Kelly, claims that conscious lives without the brain. The reason I want to talk about this because I just had questions and I never seen really people speak on it, and I wanted to know, like, do people really see this stuff? Do they really leave their body? Is it just our imagination of hallucinating? So when I have questions like these, I research on it. Let's get to the two forms of death. This is called clinical death. First comes clinical death, which is when breathing and blood flow stop. Clinical death is the same as cardiac arrest. The heart has stopped beating and the blood flow stopped flowing. If blood flow can be restored either by cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which is CPR, or by getting the heart pumping again, the patient could come back from clinical death. It's not a sure thing. Success rates for CPR are pretty dismal. So I know a couple of people that's had this, like shock in the heart, CPR, stuff like that. So a clinical death is something that does come back. So when people say I died, it's really a medical term of clinical death, near-death experience. They really didn't all the way what they would call death, meaning brain dead, whole body shut down. So it's a form of death that they see because your heart stops. You still can die if they don't bring the heart pumping again and the blood flow. Then you got biological death. Biological death, on the other hand, is a brain death, and there's no turning back from the brain death. That is irreversible death. Just to make things a bit more complicated, however, it is possible to keep the body alive while the brain is dead. The heart is more of a subcontractor than an employee of the body. It keeps its own hours and works without the direct supervision by the brain. Since the heart works without the brain input, it's possible to keep it going for a long time after the brain is dead. Okay? So this is right now a reversible death, meaning when the brain dies, brain dead, or vegetable that we would call it in the hood, So let's go to the next. Scientists say the energy that gave you life lives on. Even our genes will eventually fade, and all that we are will become clay. Do you find such oblivion disheartening? You're not alone, but you may take solace in the fact that the part of you will continue on long after your death. Your energy, according to the first law of thermodynamics, the energy that powers all life continues on and can never be destroyed. It is transformed. I didn't mean to put the comedian part, but it's showing that the energy transforms and it doesn't die. This is a teaching that's new to a lot of people that's coming out and people speaking on it. Some people are saying the energy and the light is God. But we can get into all that too. So let's go to the next subject. The light. One of the things people see. Some people say that this is when they know that death is coming for the people. But a lot of people who was already clinically dead sees this afterwards. You know what I mean? Some people they say I guess see it through it, but this is speaking on afterwards, meaning after they are considered clinically dead. Okay, so let's get to it. Seeing a white light. One of the most common and well-known near-death experiences for those who die and come back is seeing a bright white light. This white light isn't something to be afraid of. In fact, most report is coming with a sense of peace and even happiness. Many have speculated about the symbolism behind the bright light. It's said to be the light, God, heaven, paradise, or even just entering the void of nothingness. Either way, it's not seen as something to be afraid of. Bruce Greyson MD, world leading expert on near death experience, the light. So, do people really see the light? The short answer, sort of. Many people who encounter NDE experience what Grayson calls an overwhelming sense of peace and well being. Oftentimes, it's not an actual electric light bulb. People describe it as a living entity radiating tremendous love, acceptance, and warmth. They feel enveloped by it. It permeates their being, and they don't know what to call it. He knows. So they simply name it light. Grayson poses that seeing a light can be a deeply moving experience associated with peace and tranquility. It's not just a ray of sunlight or an electric bulb, while some people do see such brilliance. It's more about the feeling of light itself, warmth, possibility, positivity, and freedom. So most people that see the light feel a lot of peace, calmness, warmth, freedom. I'm going to get the experience of that too, understanding how the body works, and once you leave this body, how come you don't feel that stuff? We'll go to that later. Another one of Bruce Grayson. Researchers have concluded that people of different cultures report similar phenomena but interpreted them different. The being of light may be God or Christ to a Christian, Allah to a Muslim. Reports studied over 2 decades show no embellishment, underscoring the reliability of experiencers' accounts. Reports recorded before Moody book are consistent with those afterward, indicated that people did not alter their accounts to conform to his model. I mean, they didn't change it up to fit based on the model that he's trying to fix for it and make for it. They kept with their story. Person telling a near-death experience story. When I was 13 years old, I was in northern Michigan in my family's cabin and came down with 106-degree fever, she says. I remember trying to fall asleep and feeling too hot, and then began to notice the room getting darker and the moonlight disappearing. After that, Meter says, the really weird stuff began to happen. She started to float up towards the ceiling, even though her body was still lying on the bed. Her pain completely vanished, and soon she was being pulled down a long, dark tunnel. At the end of the tunnel, there was a blinding white light and a sense of peace and calmness and utter joy. It was fantastic, she says. There's stories of people, of a person telling, you know what I mean? Just fitting all it together with the light and how they leave in the body and how they not feeling. These are similar things that most of them are going through, okay? Some see emptiness and blackness after death, plus is sleep and death the same? Okay, let's get into this. Emptiness and time itself. In many books, after life, after death, Some people reported not feeling much of anything, and that space between life and death is described as blackness, as falling into time itself. This vast emptiness is sometimes seen as scary, but most who have been there sometimes saw it as a collection of experiences and history, like joining a universe consciousness. This is a way to feel connected to the great beyond. Some describe it as a feeling as nothing at all, while others felt trapped into a universal being and the togetherness. So this is the emptiness of the people saying when there's no feeling. Sometimes they don't feel fear, none of that stuff. And I'm like I said, I'm gonna get to that part at the end. I'm gonna have a part at that why it's speaking on this and why they have that. Stories of dying and seeing blackness. I've died once, I don't remember much, and except there was a nice dark nothingness, which I guess felt kind of cozy, but I also knew it was the end, so I'd rather not. I don't know. I knew I wasn't supposed to go into the dark. Like I was in the dark, but I wasn't supposed to be enjoying it. Because if I embraced it too much, I would die. It was kind of like falling asleep and vaguely remembering a dream when you wake up. Now, I've had this kind of experience when I had a heart attack. It felt like I was dying. So I kind of like closed my eyes and was getting ready. And it wasn't no fear. And it felt good. And it was, like you said, it was black. But it's like, I know I'm supposed to be loving this. So I kind of like fought it. And I came back too. You know what I'm saying? So people say don't go into the light. Sometimes don't fall for the darkness too. Stephen Hawking speaks on the darkness of death science. EDU. Stephen Hawking recently said this. I regard the brain as a computer which will stop working when its components fail. There is no heaven or afterlife for broken down computers. This is a fairy tale story for people afraid of the dark. Now, this is his own opinion of it. Like I said, these people don't actually know. These are the claims of how they feel, because a lot of people that go through science don't go what you would call spiritual. Anything they can't really prove, they leave it outside of science. Some people make claims which they can't prove with science is really don't supposed to do that, but that's another thing. Don Stewart, both sleep and death are inevitable. They come at the end of the period of work. Inevitable, my bad. Both sleep and death are inevitable. They come at the end of the period of work. Sleep and death are where people rest for their labors. Through death and sleep are a time of rest. They are not cessation of being. Those who are dead, as well as those who are asleep, look forward to time when they will awake. Finally, both dead and those who are asleep awake to face something new. In the case of the dead, it would be a new glorified body in which to spend eternity. Blue Letter Bible. I'm trying to mix in some science, some spirituality, some biblical stuff, but I'm trying to keep it more science. Greek god of sleep. Now the reason I'm showing this is because people saying that sometimes when they died, it felt like they were asleep. So I'm gonna show the connection between sleep and death and how somebody like the ancient Greeks actually spoke on this. Greek god of sleep. Greek gods use as English words hypnos, god of the personification of sleep. So this is the god of sleep. He is the child of Nyx night, twin brother Thanatos death. His child is Morpheus, god of dreams. Words based on his name we use today: hypnosis, hypnotic, hypnotized, Roman version, somnus. This is his twin brother, Thanatos, Greek god of death, twin brother to Hypnos. In ancient Greek religion and mythology, the personification of death. His touch was gentle, likened unto his brother, twin brother, Hypnos. So check this out. Hypnos is sleep. Thanatos, the twin, is death. That father is night. That mother is dark. Hypnos, one of Hypnos' child is dream. So just put that all together now, and you'll understand that these people was putting science together and making it in the mythology. Seeing relatives or friend after death. Talking to deceased relatives. Another common experience for these who face death is feeling like they're connecting with their loved ones who have already passed. Many people describe feeling like they've entered a room or space full of loved ones. These individuals might have a message of hope, peace, and love. Though these are deceased relatives, there is no fear. It's simply a source of peace, knowing that you're surrounded by those you love most. In a book, What If This Is Heaven, author Nita Morjani describes feeling close to her deceased father after slipping into a coma. So I heard this story too of people seeing deaf relatives, and we could go into that a little bit, and of I'm trying to go to both sides of why they saying it's happening, but most of the scientific side. But a Hopkins physician who interviewed 1,400 patients can tell us about dying. Vision and vivid dreams are end-of-life experiences that are seldom talked about. They often include reunions with deceased loved ones and can provide dying patients with profound comfort. So what are they saying is why these people are saying it? It's like their brain or their mind creating this for them to have a peace or calmness of dying. Okay. This is from the studies from the hospice. It's really those subjective experiences at the end of life, those inner experiences. The nomenclature gets really tricky because the only reference point we have is to call them dreams. But what's interesting is that the patients themselves will say, no, I don't normally dream. So they're described as more alike than like dreams. But that's what we call them. We use the term vision in our studies because people say that they are awake. But it's not like we walk in and people are seeing things around the room. I think what's happening is that they're probably lucid dreaming. Example, comfort, vision, and dreams. People tended to die as they live. If you have torture, distress, or traumatic elements of your life, these processes didn't deny that. And they don't deny death. They almost transcend it. I'll give you an example. A mother who had a child who had addiction issues and ended up in prison. Her identity as a mother was questioned by herself and her end-of-life experience. Her parents came to her and told her she was a good mother, and a guy who lost his arms in childhood was wondering how he was going to be and alive anonymously. Wondering how he was going to be and live anonymously. He ends up working, and people who he worked with came to him during his end of life experience and told him that he was the best at what he did. So what they're saying is lucid dreams of things that could have happened to you, and I guess it's telling you that it makes you feel it not only cause peace sometimes when they see the family, but they can see friends, they can see things that that makes them feel better off of the traumas that they had. So like he said, the dude lost his hand at work, and then the people he worked with told him he was the best worker ever. You know, a mother who might was dying and was convincing or asking herself, was I a good mother before I died? They had family members come and tell them, yeah, you did a good job. Now, this is us claims now. These are not, they do not 100% know this because there's not a lot of research in this. Okay, these are people really researching off a few people. 1,400 people is a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people. Okay, so let's go. Flashbacks. Finally, when having a near-death experience, some people go through their past instead of experiencing something completely new. They return to time or a place in their memories. This could be a flashback of their highs and lows, or it could be like reliving a favorite moment. Flashbacks are frequently explored in fiction and storytelling, and they are a way to remind us of the importance of the little moments. If there's anything we can learn from these near-death experiences, is that your relationships, feelings, and memories matter most in the end. So, like I said before, that's one of the things I had when I first had this first heart attack. It was like a flashback of everything that I did, um, and it was also things that I wanted to do that I didn't do, and it was an experience of I'm leaving right now. There's nothing I can do about it. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I didn't talk to this person. So that's what flashes in your head sometimes. Flashback death. This is often because your mind has temporarily forgotten that they've died, or because your brain is trying to understand the finality of their death. If their death was particularly traumatic, you're most likely to see or hear the person or relive them. These memories, these recurring memories, are called flashbacks. Okay. Peace and no fear story. The near-death experience research foundation collects stories from people who have seen the other side. A 4-year-old girl was in the hospital with a high-grade fever that had caused hallucinations, vomiting, and fever. When she felt her toes reach the foot of the bed, she opened her eyes to see herself lying on a gurney. Before her non-body started to rise up out the building, I began browsing through the time, and she writes, I later detailed things that occurred before I could even talk. As I keep ascending, I felt a peace. There was no questions or unknowns. Time wrapped in on itself. There was no past, present, future as we see it here. Everything happened now and at all at one time. I felt no fears of worries. This is how powerful the conscious is, the subconscious too that I was speaking on. Things can go like that, just like it does when you're alive in this body. Fear is physical. And the reason I'm speaking on this is because we got to understand fear is a physical body thing. And that's why most people, when they leave in here, they don't have the fear anymore, because fear is a physical body thing. Let me show you what fear does for you to have fear. Fear is an experience in your mind, but it triggers a strong physical reaction in your body. As soon as you recognize fear, your amygdala, small organ in the middle of your brain, goes to work. It alerts your nervous system, which sets your body fear response into emotion. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are released. Your blood pressure and heart rate increases. You start breathing faster, even your blood flow changes. Blood actually flows away from your heart and into your limbs. making it easier for you to start throwing punches or running for your life. Your body is preparing for it's called running flight effect. I don't know what it is, but it's called running flight effect. So it's telling, so that's what you gotta understand. It's not just your fear inside the brain, is what it does to your body. It makes your heart stop beating fast, blood flow, your adrenaline, all this stuff is going on with the fear. And actually your body doesn't just want to feel that. And it's a fear of something damaging your physical form. And any type of fear. It raises blood pressure, it does a lot of stuff to you. So fear is a physical thing, not a spiritual thing. That's why when you leave here, it feels like all that's coming off you like a clothes. It feels like your body is just coming off you like a clothes, like you feel nothing, because it's the fear is the physical, not the mind. Peace while dying. When someone is dying, their heartbeat and blood circulation slow down, the brain and organs release less oxygen than they need, and so work less well. In the days before death, people often begin to lose control of their breathing. It's common in people to be very calm in the hours before they die. So when you die, you feel in peace because the fear, all that stuff is physical. And like I said, fear of speeds up the heart. So when you are calm, what happens? Everything slows down. When you are asleep, everything slows down. That's where the peace and the calmness comes from, because that is also a part of the physical. Is the other part of fear, because it's both physical. But that's why they say when they die, it's not really fear or peace. It's a form of peace that they understand, but they can't understand. They can't. That's why they say it's nothingness, because it's hard to explain. It's not the peace that you would have as what you will say in a physical body. Okay. What many scientists claim the reason for NDE dream wake state brain active while having a near death experience. So this is what scientists are trying to say. Some scientists say you may be in a dream wake state. This is talking about when they seeing stuff and seeing the light and stuff. This is what scientists claim. A study published in Neurology suggests near-death experiences stem from a type of sleep-wake state. It compared survivors who had near-death experiences with those who did not. The researchers found that people with near-death experiences were more likely to also undergo REM intrusions, states in which sleep induces upon wakeful conscious. People who have near-death experiences may have an arousal system that predisposes them to REM intrusions. Kevin Nelson, professor at University of Kentucky. So a lot of them still claim, and also they claim that the brain waves still last after you die and all this stuff, and that's why you still see stuff, because they saying the conscious doesn't work without the brain, and none of this stuff works without the. But I'm gonna show somebody that's gonna say different from that. But this is what the main claim is. Their claim is not concrete. It's worth nothing that the study does have its limitations. Only 55 patients were interviewed in each group, and the results relied on anecdotal evidence. These highlight key difficulties in studying near-death experiences. Such experiences are rare and cannot be induced in a controlled setting. The result is sparse data open to a lot of interpretation, but it is unlikely that the soul enjoys a post-mortem rump. And see, this is how science do sometimes. They try to throw that in. See how they try to say there's really not a lot of data and research on it, but they still go say, oh, no, it ain't no soul. We don't still think it's a soul. See, this is still a theory and a claim, not fact. The argument against the dream-wake state claim an active brain with having a NDE. UVA, Division of Perceptual Studies, Department of Psychiatry and Neurobehavioral Science. Bruce Greyson, born 1946, is Professor Emeritus of Psychiatry and Neurobehavioral Science at the University of Virginia. He is author of After a Doctor Explores What Near-Death Experiences Reveal About Life and Beyond. Co-author of Irreducible Man and co-editor of Handbook of Near-Death Experience. Emily Williams Kelly is a researcher at the University of Virginia Division of Perceptual Studies with an interest in near-death experiences, reincarnation, other phenomena, suggestive and survival of conscious after death. So these are two people that been studying on near-death experience and does not agree with the basic science say of it, where everybody's basically saying of the experiences that people are having in NDE. And Bruce Greyson is the top leading one in it. Okay, he's been doing it for 50 years, I believe, studying it. Consciousness without the brain. The mind-brain questions are particularly absorbing to Greyson and fellow faculty in the Division of Perceptual Studies. He, Edward F. Kelly, and Emily Williams Kelly co-authored Irreducible Man Toward Psychology for the 21st Century, published in December 2006. Emily Kelly writes about F.W.H. Myers, a 19th century psychologist whose work supports the view that the mind is not generated by the brain but is constrained by it. She and Greyson examine how near-death experiences and other phenomena contravene conventional wisdom that the brain has to be functionally proper for consciousness to exist. So they're going against the conventional teaching of what most science is saying. And they're researching on it and saying that a lot of their conclusions is that the consciousness still works without the brain. Mind and brain models and negative NDE experiences. Current models of mind-brain interactions need to be re-examined. Greyson argues even Newton's law of physics break down at the extremes. I think it's the same with the mind-brain. He says our mind-brain identity model works fine for everyday walking and talking, but when you're looking at times when the brain is not functioning and the mind seems to function quite well, you get into that extreme area where we need to look at some other models. Okay? So he's saying there's need to be more research on this stuff. Not all near-death experiences are uplifting. However, for some, the initial aspects, sensing death, floating out of the body, are terrifying. A few report experiences that confirm two traditional views of hell, fire, brimstone, demons, and tortured souls. One researcher even says that near-death experiences are the work of Satan. So this is the negative part of some people experiencing, and they say that research is kind of hard because some people are twisting it because they don't really want to tell what they happen, because you know how humans do. They believe if they can lie a little bit, it would change something. Credible Stories of Near-Death Experience, peer-reviewed, written by Margaret Center. Okay, I'm just going to give you one story. Psychiatrist Brian Wells tells the story of a blind elderly woman. She suffered a cardiac arrest during her stay in the hospital. Wells was the chairman of the psychiatry department. She was unconscious at the resuscitation team tried to revive her. According to her later report, she floated out of the body and stood near the window watching the resuscitation. She observed without any pain whatsoever as they thumped on her chest and pumped air into her lungs. During the resuscitation, a pen fell out of the doctor's pocket and rolled near the same window where her out-of-body spirit was standing and watching. The doctor eventually walked over, picked up the pen, and put it back in the pocket. He then rejoined the frantic effort to save her. They succeeded. A few days later, she told her doctor that she had observed the resuscitation team at work during her cardiac arrest. No, he smoothly assured her, you were probably hallucinating because of the anoxia, lack of oxygen to the brain. This can happen when the heart stops beating. But I saw your pen roll over the window, she replied. Then she described the pen and other details of resuscitation. The doctor was shocked. So this is a peer-reviewed story of a blind woman who seen and had an out-of-body experience, who seen a doctor drop a pen, told her where the pen was dropped and everything. A blind woman now, just don't forget that. So this let you know after that she had a sight. And I think that's it. So hope you enjoy. Find me again on Facebook, TikTok, and Bing. Elevate y'all minds, YouTube. Y'all subscribe. Elevate, YH at the end, minds, YouTube. Peace out.